The Lost Colony of Roanoke is one of the most enduring enigmas in American history. In the late 16th century, over 100 English settlers arrived on Roanoke Island with the ambitious goal of establishing England's first permanent colony in the New World. When a supply ship returned 3 years later, not a single colonist remained. Their homes had been dismantled, and no bodies or graves were found. The only clue was a single word carved into a wooden post: CROATOAN. This event, cloaked in mystery and legend, has fascinated generations of historians, archaeologists, and curious minds. Despite countless theories, no definitive explanation has ever been universally accepted. However, recent discoveries in archaeology, cartography, genetics, linguistics, and environmental science may finally offer answers to this centuries-old mystery. These findings suggest that the colonists may not have vanished at all, but instead adapted, survived, and integrated with local Native American tribes. To understand the mystery, one must begin with a broader geopolitical context. In the 1580s, Queen Elizabeth I of England sought to expand her empire and rival the growing Spanish influence in the New World. Sir Walter Raleigh was granted a royal charter to establish a colony on the North American coast. He dispatched exploratory missions, including a 1584 reconnaissance led by Philip Amatus and Arthur Barlow, which praised Roanoke Island as an ideal settlement site. In 1585, Raleigh sent the first group of English colonists under the command of Sir Richard Grenville and Ralph Lane. This venture ended poorly due to strained relations with local tribes, food shortages, and a lack of resupply. Most of the settlers returned to England with Sir Francis Drake in 1586, leaving behind a small garrison whose fate remains unclear. Undeterred, Raleigh launched a second attempt. In 1587, a new group of settlers led by Governor John White, comprising families rather than soldiers, set sail for Roanoke. Among them was Eleanor Dare, White's daughter, who gave birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. The colony was to be a beacon of permanent settlement. Soon after arriving, the settlers persuaded John White to return to England to seek supplies. Reluctantly, White departed, expecting to return swiftly. However, his return was thwarted by the outbreak of war with Spain and the mobilization of the Spanish Armada. White was unable to secure a return voyage until 1590. When White finally reached Roanoke, he found the colony deserted. The palisades had been dismantled, indicating an organized departure rather than a violent one. The lack of a distress symbol, as White had instructed, suggested the move was not forced. The word CROATOAN carved into a wooden post pointed to CROATOAN Island, home to a friendly tribe with whom the colonists had previously interacted. White attempted to investigate further, but was driven back by adverse weather. He returned to England, never again setting foot in the New World and never discovering the fate of his daughter, granddaughter, or the other settlers. Over the ensuing centuries, the fate of the Roanoke colonists became the subject of endless speculation. Numerous theories emerged. Massacre by native tribes. Some believe the settlers were attacked and killed by hostile indigenous groups. Death by starvation or disease. Others posit that the colonists perished due to famine, harsh conditions, or illnesses. Captured or killed by the Spanish. Given Spain's active presence in the region, it was theorized that Spanish forces may have destroyed the colony. Assimilation with native peoples. A growing consensus began to form around the idea that the settlers joined local tribes, particularly the CROATOAN. The lack of remains or evidence of violence gave credence to the fourth theory. However, proof remained elusive. In the 21st century, new archaeological efforts began to yield compelling discoveries. Two sites, Hatteras Island and an inland location in Bertie County, North Carolina, have become focal points of investigation. At Hatteras Island, the historical CROATOAN, artifacts of English origin were unearthed, including a rapier hilt, copper ring, slate writing tablet, and 16th century pottery. These items suggest that English people, likely from the Roanoke colony, lived alongside the CROATOAN tribe. At Site X in Bertie County, researchers examined a map drawn by John White and discovered a concealed fort symbol using modern imaging techniques. Excavations revealed shards of English pottery and a hook that dated to the period of the Lost Colony. The evidence supports the theory that some colonists moved inland, possibly following a contingency plan laid out in advance. Beyond material culture, oral traditions from several Native American tribes offer critical insights. The Lumbee tribe, based in North Carolina, has long claimed descent from the Roanoke colonists. Historical accounts from early European explorers in the 1600s describe encounters with tribes who spoke broken English, practiced Christianity, and used European-style farming and building techniques. Linguists have also identified English loanwords and local Algonquian dialects, an unusual feature suggesting early and prolonged contact with English speakers. These cultural and linguistic markers hint at integration, rather than extinction. In recent years, geneticists have joined the search. By analyzing the DNA of individuals from local populations who trace their ancestry to the 17th century or earlier, researchers aim to identify markers consistent with English origin. Although no definitive genetic link has been established, several ongoing studies show promising signs. Genealogists are also combing through historical documents to trace surnames and family lineages that may connect the original settlers. This combination of science and archival research could eventually provide a biological link between the past and the present. John White's map of Virginia, housed in the British Museum, has taken on renewed significance. In 2012, researchers using ultraviolet imaging discovered that a portion of the map had been covered by a patch. Underneath was a symbol indicating a fort inland, possibly a secret location known only to White and his advisors. This discovery lent credibility to the theory that the colonists had a fallback plan to move inland if necessary. The presence of Site X near this hidden symbol aligns with this possibility and supports a coordinated relocation. Taken together, the evidence from archaeology, oral history, linguistics, cartography, and genetic science increasingly points toward a coherent conclusion. The colonists of Roanoke did not vanish. They adapted. Facing hardship and abandonment, they likely made a deliberate choice to seek refuge with friendly native tribes, integrating into their communities and preserving their lives in a new, hybrid culture. Rather than being a story of failure or tragedy, the fate of the lost colony may be one of endurance, cultural exchange, and human resilience. This revised understanding challenges traditional Eurocentric narratives and highlights the agency and generosity of indigenous peoples who welcomed and absorbed the settlers. The story of Roanoke has left an indelible mark on American cultural memory. Virginia Dare became a symbol of the lost potential of early English colonization. The word CROATOAN has become a popular motif in literature, film, and television, often invoking mystery, abandonment, and the unknown. But the real legacy of Roanoke may lie in the rich tapestry of shared history it represents. The descendants of native tribes and possible settler lineages form a living bridge to a story once thought to have no ending. Modern researchers continue to investigate, collaborate, and refine their understanding. As science advances and new tools emerge, it is increasingly likely that the final pieces of the Roanoke puzzle will fall into place. Contemporary advancements in technology have added powerful tools to historical investigation. Ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR, light detection, and ranging have enabled archaeologists to scan beneath forest floors and swamps without excavation. This non-invasive exploration has revealed potential settlement structures and footpaths, offering fresh targets for archaeological digs. Digital modeling and 3D reconstructions have brought the colony back to life, enabling historians to visualize what daily life at Roanoke might have looked like. These reconstructions serve as educational tools, drawing public interest and support for ongoing research. Satellite imagery has also been used to study environmental changes on Roanoke Island. Researchers can now assess how shifting coastlines and rising sea levels may have affected the colony's location and survival strategies. These environmental factors may have played a larger role than previously assumed in the colonists' decision to relocate. What was once a regional mystery has now garnered international academic attention. Universities across the United States and the United Kingdom have partnered on joint research initiatives. Indigenous scholars are also playing a larger role in shaping the narrative, bringing in long-overlooked perspectives and challenging colonial assumptions. Documentaries, podcasts, and virtual museum exhibits have made the story accessible to global audiences. These platforms amplify the findings of scientists and historians while inviting the public to engage with the mystery in new ways. The democratization of historical inquiry ensures that the search for truth is no longer confined to ivory towers, but is a shared cultural pursuit. Educational curricula in North Carolina and Virginia have begun integrating the latest findings, helping to educate younger generations about the complexity of early colonial history. Through education, the mythos of Roanoke is evolving from ghost story to case study, a transformation that honors both its mystery and its significance. One area gaining scholarly attention is the environmental stress that may have influenced the colony's fate. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, reveals that Roanoke Island experienced one of the worst droughts in 800 years during the time of settlement. This would have exacerbated food shortages, strained relations with local tribes, and made agricultural efforts nearly impossible. In such a climate, survival would have required alliances. This necessity could have been the catalyst for integration with indigenous communities. The environmental hardship thus becomes more than a backdrop. It is a key driver in the unfolding narrative, philosophical implications, and human resilience. The story of Roanoke is not just an archaeological puzzle. It is a reflection of human behavior in the face of the unknown. The colonists were ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Their disappearance is not merely a failure of colonial policy, but also a testament to their adaptability. Instead of resisting or collapsing, they likely chose connection over isolation, interdependence over conflict. In doing so, they created a cultural synthesis that defied the rigid structures of the empire and offered an alternative model of coexistence. For over 4 centuries, the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists stood as a haunting historical riddle. Now, through meticulous research and the convergence of multiple disciplines, a compelling narrative of survival is taking shape. It appears that the colonists did not perish or vanish into the wilderness, but instead became part of the living landscape, joining with native communities and continuing their lives in a new and unfamiliar world. This reimagined history not only solves a mystery, but also honors the complexity of early American experience, where cultures collided, converged, and ultimately evolved together. It is a story of adaptation, partnership, and the persistence of the human spirit in the face of uncertainty. To explore more untold stories of the past and uncover secrets buried beneath the sands of time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. The mysteries of history are far from over, and the next revelation might be just one discovery away.